Great. I'm Mia Tramz, currently newly editorial director of enterprise and immersive experiences for Time. But for the last 2 years, I was the managing editor of Life VR, which was Time Inc., now Meredith's company-wide VR and AR initiative. I'll talk a little bit about what Life VR is, but I'm going to try to get into the content. And what I'll show you is a bunch of what I would consider to be case studies for the different types of ways that you can think about and approach VR and AR for your organization. So Life VR is meant to be an umbrella brand for all of Time Inc. and now Meredith's titles. So in my role, I got to work with all these amazing brands, from Time to Sports Illustrated, Travel and Leisure, People, Entertainment Weekly, goes on and on and on. And before we get into the content, the kind of ethos was that at the beginning, 2 years ago, which seems like a lifetime at this point, distribution was one of the hardest things to solve for with VR. So the folks at Time Inc. that came up with this concept and this brand thought, hey, if you were looking for this People VR experience, and in the same place where you found it, there was also a Travel and Leisure VR experience, maybe you'd want to watch both of them. So in that way, we tried to use the collective power of our brands to help with the distribution problem. The other thing to know is it is an extension of the Life magazine brand. And when they were trying to come up with a name for this new brand, they found Henry Luce's original mission statement for Life magazine. If you read it, it reads actually like a VR pitch. He's talking about taking people to the moon, through the shadows of the jungle. He actually says walking through walls. It's a very VR-y kind of statement. And if you think about what Life magazine was, it was a huge magazine. The photos were giant. It was about as immersive as you could get with a print product. And we really felt that VR could be something that represents the next evolution of what that brand was meant to do, to take you to places that you wouldn't have access to otherwise. So we launched in 2016 in September, and we've done a bunch of projects since then. I think I've produced and or distributed about 30 projects at this point. One of the first 360 projects that we did was for Time.com. We partnered with AP to do 2 videos. One was a 360 video of Trump's inauguration, and simultaneously we were covering the Women's March in 360, and we published both to Time's platforms simultaneously. This, though it was not too long ago, was an exercise in speed for us. Any of you who are working in 360 know that even the commercially available 360 cameras that are out there have had a very fast evolution over the last 2 years. At this point, when we were doing this, about as fast as we could get content up was, quality content up was, a few hours. You can live stream at this point. It's changed, quite rapidly. So with this, we were really going for speed and how fast could we get these 2 pieces up. The next evolution of this was a live stream. We live streamed the Great American Solar Eclipse, and this was a huge learning curve for everyone that worked on the project. Truly a beast that took many, many months to figure out and prepare for. But I think the results were great and really make a case for both 360 video and live stream VR. One of the things that I've had to be an advocate for in our company is applying these 2 technologies, but really making the different brands understand that VR and 360 video aren't for everything. They're not for every story. You really want to find the stories that lend themselves well to the format. And in this case, we hit the magic sweet spot of space content, which Time readers love. A really huge event that lent itself well to a live format. And the results are pretty amazing. It was the most streamed piece of content that Time has ever published to its YouTube channel. We had 5 million concurrent viewers. And that was our first dip into this space. So we're excited to keep pushing there. I'll just quickly go through a few other 360 VR projects. Quick audience poll, how many of you are making VR? How many of you have watched VR? Okay, how many of you have watched in a cardboard headset? How many of you have used a Vive? Okay, So when we're talking about 360 VR, it's probably what you experienced in a cardboard headset. You as the viewer are at a fixed location. You can't walk into the environment you're looking at. It's a more passive, voyeuristic experience. When we get to the higher end of the projects, which we'll touch on at the end here, you're talking about something that's closer to true virtual reality, a computer-generated three-dimensional environment that you can actually walk into, interact with, and it's more akin to a video game than a 360 video. So here's some 360 video projects. This was one of the pieces that we launched Life VR with. It's a recreation of a rescue mission that an American couple led from Nazi-occupied Germany back to the States. It was a companion piece to Ken Burns's documentary of the same title. For InStyle, we did this really fun VR music video that the editors of InStyle styled, and it featured Yuna, who's this incredible, amazing, up-and-coming singer. For travel and leisure, we've done a ton of VR travel guides. These have been very popular. They also have a long shelf life, which is great. The first two are singular pieces that run about 5 minutes. The last one we actually published as a 4-part series. For people, we've had an interesting approach. We're actually acting as a distributor in this case, working with the film studios who are producing all manner of very cool, very high-end 360 experiences to market their films. But they are really well-told stories, so we get to distribute them to people's audience through the Life VR channels. We also have created behind-the-scenes content for people for some of these films as well. Murder on the Orient Express was a great example of that, where we went on set where they had built an actual train and train station for the film. And then this is one I'll talk a little bit more about at the end. We just got nominated for an Emmy for this. This is Capturing Everest. It was one of the first projects that I produced. It's a 4-part VR docuseries that was the first VR documentary to take you from the bottom of Mount Everest to the summit. And we follow 3 really amazing climbers, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that towards the end because it was also our first AR execution. All the R's. Okay, so this is where, this is my sweet spot and where I really most enjoy working in VR. So these, again, are experiences that are more akin to video games. Instead of rendering out a 360 video file, you have what is essentially an app or a piece of software that is running in real time as your user is experiencing it. This requires, of course, a higher-end headset like an Oculus Rift or a Vive and a very expensive PC that those headsets need to run off of. Those prices are going down, thankfully, but for the most part, this is the least accessible version of VR to your readers. I want to caveat that with each of these projects, that was very much taken into consideration in the distribution plan that we had for them. And we have partnered with museums and high schools to bring these experiences to where an audience would be instead of expecting people to watch them at home. We're trying to make them as publicly accessible as possible. So this first one was an idea that came from our history editor, Lily Rothman. It's called Remembering Pearl Harbor. We made it for the 75th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor. And what we wanted to do here was, A, bring you back to that moment in history in as realistic and as journalistically accurate a way as possible. B, we wanted to make it educational, and in that it should be appropriate for children. So very notably, when we take you to the actual harbor and you're seeing the aftermath of the attack, we are not showing you dead bodies, we're not showing you blood and gore. It's almost like a video game environment without any people or avatars running around. That does remove a layer of reality for the experience, but this is a very powerful medium, and we did not want to traumatize anybody. It was a choice that we made. Those are choices that all of us are going to have to make when we're working in this medium. This is a piece that takes you back to this moment in history through the eyes of Lieutenant Jim Downing. When we recorded his voiceover for the piece, he was 103 years old, one of the oldest living veterans to survive the attack. He actually just passed away at the age of 104 early this year. And so in that way, we feel really lucky to have preserved both his story and his point of view of what happened. We begin by taking you into a archetypal 1940s home that's on the outskirts of Chicago. Everything that you see in this home is an object from the World War II Museum, who we collaborated with on this. They sent us images of objects they have in their archive, and then we worked with a production company named Deluxe, who built the experience for us to recreate those objects as photorealistically as possible in 3 dimensions. So everything in this living room, as the viewer, you have the ability to pick up, touch, interact with. So I'm getting the wrap it up. I'll just quickly play you a video of what this looks like, if I can get it.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941,
My name is Jim Downing. I'm 103 years old plus. When the attack on Pearl Harbor occurred, I was postmaster of the battleship USS West Virginia. So the first Japanese plane that I saw was flying low and slow. He was so close you could almost see the color of his eyes. It was not unusual to see Army planes
flying around on Sunday mornings, so at this point I was thinking, this is one of ours, until he got above, and I could see the red circles under the wings. They did a great job of camouflaging their planes to look like ours.
Everybody was a hero. Everybody that survived instinctively did the right thing and helped others at the risk of their own life.
So it looks like I won't have time to take you through the other projects that we've done, but very broadly, we've created a VR hologram of Buzz Aldrin to take you from his landing site on the moon to the surface of Mars and took that to the Air and Space Museum. We've created a relaxation experience called Lumen that is at the Stanford Children's Hospital and currently helping kids cope with stress before and after heart surgery, which is also another revenue stream for our company down the road. And then lastly, we launched our AR capability last year and have activated several magazines, including the Capturing Everest issue of SI, and most recently, the Bill Gates edited issue of Time, where we kind of brought a bunch of infographics to life using AR. So that's it.